Welcome to White Women Wake Up. I'm Jonelle.
And I'm Karen. Together, we're diving into real, unfiltered conversations about what it means to wake up as white women in a world shaped by bias, privilege, and inherited patterns. We're here to challenge norms, unpack our privilege, and foster empathy through raw, intergenerational dialogue. It's not always easy, and we don't always agree, but we're showing up anyway.
Yeah, let's wake up.
Let's wake up. Hi, Jonelle.
Hi, Karen.
Okay.
Reflection.
We
haven't gotten feedback
We haven't gotten feedback yet.
But we'd love feedback.
Yeah.
Does homework trigger you?
Yeah.
Triggers me.
Yeah. Everything, it's so funny as we're doing more and more of this research, I forget the infantilize. So I really, as I was through the week, I was kind of looking at bodies, looking at, because that was the conversation we had. And we talked about
it was actually more about loving yourself and your body, but that's fine too.
Oh, that is true.
No, but go back to judging other people's bodies.
No, I did it in a loving way. I didn't do it in a judgmental way. It was more of okay, well, and that could be the gaze, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to figure all this out and trying to find ways to love. But anyways, it's you know what? God, you created us in these, and I believe in God. Other people may not, but I believe in this vast creation. And it was actually more beautiful in reflecting than it was more of looking at, wow, what a creative world. What an imaginative world that all of us are so different and unique, and we all have something to bring to the table.
But did you love yourself this week?
I did love myself.
Good.
I did. I don't think I struggle as much about loving myself. I struggle more with emotional ups and downs. That's more of why would you call that struggling with myself?
You compare yourself a lot to people.
Do I?
And what other people have.
Yeah.
Not physically, but I think there's other ways that you might not have love for yourself.
Talk about inherited culture. My culture, it was all about how much money you made.
Yeah.
And because I live in a very median income, I live on a teacher's salary, and my husband's retired. I have I'm not poor, but I wouldn't call myself wealthy either, or wealthy in comparison, I guess. Yeah. So that is a place that I live. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think body shaming was it, but I think we could have probably expanded it to any way to love yourself. You got to love yourself first before you can also start.
Yeah.
Not before, but in order to fully love people whole too.
Yeah.
You got to work on yourself.
Yeah.
It's spring, and so I'm really into gardening. And
you have a beautiful garden.
Oh my gosh, my garden, minus the bunnies that ate my kale and spinach.
I want to get you this new book. I forget the name. It's by Debbie Milliman and Roxanne Gray.
And it's gardening?
It's gardening. And she's an amazing designer and podcaster. And her partner is an amazing cook.
Side note, but I really felt a lot of self-love this week because my flower garden is growing. It was not super pretty last year. I'm really good at produce, but not necessarily flowers yet. And I'm having a booming flower garden. And so that was just my kind of self-care and love.
I got to give another plug for Jonelle. I think this is her self-care and love. Jonelle has started a line of children's books.
Oh.
And they are so cute. They're off of our dogs, Mo and Milo. So if you're looking for a fun, silly, really silly. Jonelle actually, I'm going to get a plug to Jonelle. Jonelle actually is one of the funniest people I know. And she is taking that humor and bringing it in, illustrating, her illustrations are beautiful, into these children's books, moandmilo.com. And Mo has neurodiversity, and so they struggle in how they're going to work together.
I've kind of mapped Mo after a lot of feelings of my childhood. But also, there's a lot of real Mo in there. Mo is nervous. I think if Mo was a child, she potentially would be
I think
neurodiverse.
Mo, I want to speak into this even in this podcast, because one of the things that I think Mo has given you, Mo's reactions are completely different than any other dogs. Mo's not very loving. And I mean, well, I shouldn't say loving. That's a value. She loves in different ways. And so it's really challenged you to go, okay, what does it mean for Mo to be Mo and me to accept the way that Mo gives Mo's energy out and being. Yeah. Because you can't change Mo.
You can't change Mo. She is very much definitively her independent, smart lady.
Yeah. Okay, we're digressing. Anyways, we could talk about this forever.
Digressing.
Okay, so I am in a small book group.
Okay.
Oh gosh, I forget the title. It's like White Women Defensiveness or something like that. And and we were talking in this. So it's my topic this week. By the way, if you're not watching on YouTube, Jonelle and I accidentally wore the same black and white stripes. We look so funny.
Ended up in stripes.
Who would have guessed?
Yeah.
So, anyways, so we were talking about grief, and I was talking about how doing grief work is actually really important, and it's actually the impetus to a lot of this, because it helps us get into spaces of suffering, helps us be empathetic. But anyways, we were talking about grief work, and I was thinking about the years that I'd spent in this community in Tijuana, and how periodically someone would die during this period of time, and that community would come together and they would cry out, scream in these kind of communal rooms for almost 24 hours as a way to release the grief. And this therapist that's in this small group says, well, emotional regulation is rooted in white supremacy.
Oh, I totally believe that.
So Jonelle and I talk a lot about emotional regulation because we're trying to figure it out. And when I heard, first of all, I did the real white woman thing. When I heard the word white supremacy, I shut down. I was like, what? Are you kidding? Is everything white supremacy?
Basically.
I really reacted in the way that I'm trying to tell all of us, the discomfort cycle.
Yeah.
I was uncomfortable. And then I went, me, I always have to do a word search. And I'm like, okay, recenter. What does she mean by white supremacy? She's not telling me I'm a Ku Klux Klanner. What she's saying is, it's a system designed to center and protect whiteness.
By word search, do you mean like Google or?
Google.
Google.
Because
word searches are usually puzzles.
I know, I'm not doing that.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure people understood. You're not using a word search to manage your emotions.
So
you're researching.
I really liked that language. Okay, so getting beyond what you said and beginning to think about this emotional regulation and then the harm that emotional regulation can do. And so then in another group I was in, you missed this. This is all week. I've been talking to everybody about this, Jonelle.
About me.
But you. So then another group I was in, we talked about emotional regulation. And maybe I pushed it too far because one of my friends was like, well, that could borderline on abuse. Like I said, well, if you come from a different culture and you're used to kind of yelling at your kids, is this something we should accept? So anyways.
Yeah, I think that is abuse.
Yeah.
I think
so anyways.
There's a difference between yelling and processing.
Yeah. So this idea of emotional regulation, and then a lot of people who I talked to about it brought it back to the white woman, centered on the white woman, about white women tears, and that was one of them. But I was actually thinking more in terms of how and that's why unpack white women tears.
Yeah.
So you're good at this.
No, I want to unpack an emotional regulation.
Yeah.
Because I do think there's multiple sides to this. Like, I think the emotional regulation that you're talking about that's toxic, that's white supremacy, is more around dismissive emotional regulation.
Yes.
Versus I do think there's very healthy ways to emotionally regulate. I think even the example you gave of just mourning in Tijuana, that is emotional regulation.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of positive ways to emotionally regulate. Yelling at your kids is not a positive way,
or shaming someone.
If
your
is
emotion is going to shame someone, that's not okay.
So I want to get that clear.
And that is the white women tears. So when we talk about the white women tears that is referencing, especially in racial conversations, it is someone bringing up a topic that demonstrates our inherited complicity towards racism. And instead of us being able to listen to that topic, we immediately go into tears. And those tears actually then...
Well, they're weaponizing.
They're weaponizing. Yes.
I think
so that's a little bit different.
That's been a big trend for years amongst white people and white women around weaponizing. My generation weaponizes therapy now.
Yeah.
So all the therapy speak and kind of as if we're progressive and we're doing these things, and you weaponize it, impose it on people like, well, I'm setting a boundary, but really what they might be doing is actually, something harmful. That's not an actual boundary. It's not a healthy thing. So I do want to get that clear that like emotional regulation as a whole is still do it in a positive way, I think is still a good goal. It's when you weaponize emotional regulation that I think...
But I was even thinking about, I get what you're saying that is positive, but okay, Karen, I'm going to say for myself, I am a very passionate person. I love to talk loudly. If I could, I would probably be, the word would be more flamboyant, would be more active.
Yeah.
I'm a physical active person. And my whole life, I've been regulated in those kind of spaces so that I sit on my hands so my hands don't move. I don't talk too loud. I don't. And so
that's regulated. Again, I think you're kind of mixing up multiple things.
Well, what I'm trying to get at is it's like we've said this is the standard, and the standard is white. And so this white standard of emotional regulation is you need to be calm, you need to be passive, you need to sit at, like, perfect example is my Presbyterian church. You never yelled out ecstatic, holy, statements. That's what I'm saying.
Having that caveat makes more sense. The white standard emotional regulation. That is what you're speaking to.
You go to a meeting
because I was like, emotional regulation as a whole, if done in a healthy way, can be a ton of different things.
Yeah.
And those can all be done healthy.
Yeah.
But you're talking the white standard of emotional regulation.
But what's considered healthy? When the white standard is the standard that's being put on us as that's healthy, why?
Because I think
why do I have to live that out? Why do I have to live out
two different things?
No, why do I have to live out a white standard of emotional regulation?
You don't have to.
Jonelle, I get told all the time.
The world has been telling you, but you don't have to. Those are two different things. You don't have to live out a world of white standard emotional regulation. But the world is telling, those are two different statements, Mom.
Okay.
You don't have to do anything that the white supremacy says. You're just brought up and the whole world tells you to do it.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do it. You don't understand that that's a victim mindset.
I know. I don't even know how to live without, I've been my whole life, I've been shamed in different ways that I behave.
I'm not saying that their system doesn't push you to do it. But you have to understand that you still have a choice. That's the victimhoodness. You still have choices in these matters. This is not a gun to your head. But going back to, I think what often happens, I know what often happens with white standards is they work for the core of white normalized people. And then it becomes the standard because people are like, this was great for me. And it goes back to there's no intersectionality in it. Emotional regulation from a white standard doesn't take into account depression, anxiety, autism, ADHD. It doesn't take into account the intersectionality that might shift.
Your culture may be a loud culture.
Okay, well that's a completely side note. If we're talking within the white, you're a white woman with white standards on you. That's what I'm just speaking of. The culture, yes. But within the white world of being told calm, regulate, I think it's why we get these terms like toxic positivity, because white women are totally taught to just be toxic and power through, and it seems like it's a positive
toxic positivity, because you've accused me of that a lot.
Well,
and I
boomers
I didn't even know what that was.
I would say young boomers, older boomers. I don't know at this point. Younger boomers.
Do you consider me a young boomer?
Well, yeah, aren't you on the end of boomers?
I am on the end of boomer, but thank you. I don't feel like I'm a young person anymore, but go on.
Say you were young.
Okay, so
there's this great, Amy Poehler came out on SmartList recently, and she had this great comment of, she was like, I love 50s because you're the youngest old person. She's like, we're like the freshmen of old people.
Yeah, freshmen of old people.
It's great.
That is funny.
I thought it was so
well, now
funny.
I'm in my 60s.
So you're the sophomore.
I'm the sophomore of old people. Hey,
so
that's
you're a little bit knowledgeable, but you're so young in the old people world.
That makes me feel good. Okay, so say what toxic
positivity.
Okay.
So toxic positivity was really, I think, more of a trend, probably when you're like the core of your parenting kind of thing. Because I think it was really big around like 2000s, early, 2010s of that manner of just like powering through, kind of how we've talked about like white feminism. And I used to speak to you like white feminists have like are ruining feminism.
Yeah.
And you used to get
I would get so mad.
You're like, no,
until I started doing my history on it and realized,
we've done so much
gosh,
work.
Poor Bell Hooks. Like, she's right.
Yeah.
They are right.
We paved the way for you. And it was kind of like this like bucket up mentality. Like, look what we had to suffer.
Yeah.
Bucket up. And so toxic positivity is more around like, just let go of the negative and only focus on the positive.
Yeah.
And where, again, this is rooted in white supremacy, is there's no intersectionality to that. There's no location to that, as you've talked about before, in the sense that, like, that kind of positivity really only works for people who have all their needs met in the moment.
Yeah.
And so you're not suffering to get food on the table. You're not suffering to pay a bill. You're not suffering. And there's so many other things, or you don't have depression or anxiety or, again, autism. You don't have these things that are weighing you down in other ways. And so the reason it becomes toxic is it's given the same note to everyone of like, if you're negative, you're never going to get out of your circumstances. When really that's not necessarily the case about it. It's also not it's almost like the colorblindness of attitude.
Yeah.
Like not acknowledging the root or the issue. I'm not saying linger on it, but like not acknowledging or not even like giving someone the affirmation of like, wow, that was really hard. Kind of thing. It dismisses everything that person is going through.
Yeah, it actually is a way of saying, I don't want to listen to you. Yeah, because you just told me something that's really hard, you're struggling with, and all I do is I turn around and say, oh, I'll pray about it.
Yeah.
Or,
or you look at the positive.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm so sorry your dog was run over by the car. Luckily, your cat wasn't. I don't know.
Or you can get another dog.
Yeah, you can get another. Exactly. There's always trying to look. I don't know. I know. We were having to struggle with my dad letting the dogs loose.
I thought you were going to tell the story about with Phoebe almost dying, and then I said, "Well, we've got to pay for this. We could get new dogs."
It wasn't. That was awful. That
was toxic positivity.
That was toxic positivity. My dog was dying in the vet's office,
and it was going to cost a lot of money.
And my mom says, "Don't pay for the surgery. We can get 3 new dogs for the price of the surgery."
I know.
I could not. That's a
We're painting a very negative picture of me.
I think that's beyond toxic positivity.
Yeah.
Anyways. My point going, and it's not even toxic positive towards others.
We did save the dog, by the way. we did save the dog.
So you're right, circle. We did save the dog. We love the dog. She had several more great years after that.
Yeah.
Anyways, no, and toxic positivity isn't just about other people.
Yeah.
Like I definitely think, but like so often what we place on ourselves is what we place on other people too. And it's interesting, this was actually like totally relevant topic because this was something that my therapist and I were working on this week of like some things that I'm working through and how my brain will allow me to process for a few minutes and then it's like, okay, we're done with that and move on kind of thing.
Interesting.
And it's really...
this is so circular because this is why we were talking about grief work. Because grief work, you can't shut it off. You can't just go, okay, I'm done.
You try
when you're really
hard.
authentic, real grief and you're doing it, you have to be in this space and let it take over.
But not even authentic grief. As we know, even if you're in denial about grief, it still pops in ways that your brain can't shut it out.
And you can't shut it out. So this is so interesting that you're like, this is it. We don't even know how to teach ourselves to be in the real work of introspection.
Well, and I think what my brain is trying to do right now, and I even called it out as toxic positivity to my therapist, is I think we have gone through so much grief, so much trauma over the last 5 years that my brain is like, enough with your petty frustrations. And they're not petty. I need to validate myself. But enough with your petty frustrations. Let's move on. Let's have fun in life. Let's not have any more trauma anymore. And what my therapist is trying to work on is the same thing, is validating myself. Having me validate, wow, that is tough. What you're going through or what you're thinking about or what's burdening you is really tough. And it's so interesting, in the validation, it actually allows me to sit in it and then walk away in a much healthier way than when I just try to walk away.
Oh my gosh. So wait, are we becoming full circle here? So when we're talking about emotional regulation being a white patriarchal thing, what we're doing is saying, okay, that's what you're feeling, but put it aside. Instead of saying, hey, like you're saying,
but this is where
let's validate that. Let's hear it.
Yes.
Let's go through it, whatever that may look like. You might have to scream. You might have to go in a room and be quiet, whatever that works for you, but we want to validate it and work through it.
This is why I was trying to get you to distinguish the difference of emotional regulation has multifaceted. So emotional regulation is not white supremacy. What you were talking about is standard.
She said it was rooted in white supremacy.
See, and this is where I don't necessarily agree with her, because I think she's only speaking to the white standard of emotional regulation. Like, emotional regulation can happen in so many other healthy ways.
So give me some examples of what would be a white standard emotional regulation.
We've talked about so many, like how you were saying of dismiss it. Like, don't acknowledge, dismiss, like, oh, that feeling's hard, walk away. Or like you were saying, you're too loud, so be quiet. Work on being quieter. Work on or for men, it's don't cry. Like that's a white standard of like, men, you can't cry. When there's so many great benefits to crying. I read a study once that they say that it was like in a psychology magazine, this was years ago in college, that they say the only way to truly get rid of pain and emotion is to either sweat it out or cry it out.
Oh.
Like, isn't that so interesting?
Yeah.
And so like, you know, I mean, there's other ways. I'm definitely paraphrasing this study, but it was like a big way to like release stuff fast, sweat it out or cry it out. And so I think that's a white standard that we place on so many men, is don't cry it out.
Yeah. Go play basketball.
Exactly. Go.
Well, and another white standard is to be emotionally regulated within an office meeting. Like, if you show any extreme passion, people get uncomfortable.
My career, the amount of times I've gone to a bathroom and cried in my career. And the amount of times people have mentored me and I mentored other people, like, you're going to cry in this career. It's just going to happen. Find a bathroom and cry. And you look back at that, and that's, first of all, an awful expectation that you will cry many times in this fashion career. But a second thing, even worse, that it's saying, don't cry in front of me. Like, the rule is go find a bathroom and cry. Don't let people see
people see your weakness.
So those are the white standards.
And it's so hypocritical, isn't it? Because in this world right now, we want to be vulnerable. We want people to, we want to be authentic. And part of authenticity is vulnerability. And if you're in a meeting and something happens within that meeting that sparks that emotion, you should be able to comfortably cry. You should. And most people, so here's emotional regulation. Okay, let's go further. Let's say you're in that meeting. Something sparks you to either extreme passion or to cry, something beyond the normative, yes. Okay. Regulating then would be to have that emotion. Maybe you'd excuse yourself because you're trying to figure out what you're to do, or figuring a way to calm yourself down within the people that you're with.
Yeah.
Maybe your tears, you cry, and then you clean those tears up. I mean, it's regulating isn't, in other words, holding everyone captive in that space. But we keep saying it's not allowed. Or maybe not.
I don't know if I fully agree with that, because I think regulating also is about putting yourself in a confident state to move through society. And so I don't think crying in a meeting or yelling in a meeting is going to make you walk away and feel confident about yourself anyways. And so, and also this is the thing about white tears. Like if you cry in a meeting, that's actually can be pretty manipulative.
Okay. So I'm going to say something. I mean, this is being vulnerable, and I hope this is okay. We might have to cut it. I don't know. When you first started doing research on your neurodiversity, you came to the family and you said, this is what I think I am. This is what I think I've discovered about myself. I would like you all to do some research, and I would like you to all to try to adjust.
I never said that.
No.
I know specifically I didn't say that because the argument in the family, I never wanted anyone to adjust. I wanted them to just understand. I never even said research. I just said, this is the research I've done. This is what I now understand about myself. And there was pushback that the family didn't want to adjust for me. And I was frustrated because I didn't ask for adjustment.
So maybe how I heard it.
I never asked for adjustments.
Because what I did after that is I went and did research, and I went and adjusted what I thought our conversations may and may not look like. And you really helped me.
Yeah, and but I didn't ask for it because, again, that was actually a very big argument.
I see that is such a healthy thing, right? Because now I've not expected you to be different. I've not expected you to engage in the conversation differently. I've learned that that's coming from the way that you're processing something. So why can't we do more of that in our society?
Well, here's the deal. You're bringing up so many different points.
Yeah.
First of all, I would have loved to have been able to ask for that and to be honored with the grace of, yes, you have lived and struggled your whole life not understanding fully why you think differently than everyone else. Yes, I would love to learn and validate you, and we can refigure our conversations. That would have been an amazing approach. That is not what I was received by the family at all. So I'm happy.
But it has unfolded this way.
It has unfolded years later.
Yeah.
No, that unfolded, and that actual conversation was a large argument and around not believing my lived experience, not wanting to shift for me, kind of. There was a lot of things around that. There was a very negative experience.
Yeah.
But what you're pointing out is this is what I think a lot of people in marginalized communities have been saying for years. Like, this is what having inclusive environments for people of color, for women, this is why working from home was such a revolution for so many people who don't fit into the white normatives, and especially the white male normatives and neurotypical normatives of an office space, and could really kind of separate themselves from working from home. So I think the thing is, like, you're hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be hard to ask, but unfortunately people don't.
Because we set up these standards, which are white supremacists in their definition, which is to center white people.
Yeah.
Because these standards have centered
their ideals of normality.
Yeah.
They wouldn't say white because other people
wouldn't say white, but they really are.
They are
Eurocentric.
Yeah, Eurocentric, but centers their ideas of normalcy.
Yeah, and many people that have been othered would say, they're centered on white principles.
And there's plenty of people that fit within that normalcy, and this is why there's not questions around it, because it fits for them or it makes sense. But this is a different topic than emotional regulation, I think.
Well, it was shocking because she's a therapist. And so this woman who said emotional regulation is rooted in white supremacy. This is where the topic came up.
It's got to be. Again,
well, and I think what she's getting at, the root of it was...
The root of probably Americanized emotional. Because I think the example that you gave at the very beginning...
But Americanized is
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But my point
Yeah.
is you can't just say emotional regulation because even your point in the beginning, like in Tijuana, they're regulating their emotions by having that cry out. Like that's still an emotional
I
regulation.
see. The idea that okay, so what?
That's what I've been trying to say the
So
whole time.
maybe unpacking this is this person's definition of emotional regulation
It's within the lens,
which is
of
in the
American,
lens,
probably psychology,
yes,
white
supremacy
of that.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Emotional regulation as a whole, there's so many great
Well,
tools.
yeah, because like when we were in Japan and people don't talk on the subway, people were regulating their behavior on the subway and it's part of their culture.
You're taking, no, that's assimilation.
Okay.
That's not emotional regulation.
Yeah, okay.
What?
Help me, Lord.
No, that's a whole other topic around.
We'll bring that up later, huh?
No, that's simply assimilation and like our cultural norms.
So the essence of this conversation, and it was awakening to me because I hadn't really thought about these normative behaviors and emotions, what I say normative, are rooted in white standards.
Totally.
And I'm living out these white standard emotions.
Yes, we don't.
I think it's important to kind of define it and say what we believe it to be.
Well, and I would even say, and again, we live in Seattle, which is much more like Scandinavian culture, because I would say ours of being quiet or being, handling things are much more even like, Northern Eurocentric values than even like when you look at other like, other cultures kind of thing.
When I moved from Chicago, I mean, I'm loud and I'm, that's part of my cultural heritage. And then coming to Seattle, it was looked at a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think Seattle has a lot of passive-aggressive, positive toxicity.
Yeah.
In its culture, bred in its culture.
Yeah. And so one of the things that we're saying...
So did the South when I lived in the South.
So one of the things that we're talking about in general is just to pay attention. The positive toxicity, for example, is when we really don't validate someone's lived emotions and experiences.
I also think, I mean, we're over time, but this goes so much into like I said, like, really making like therapy talks, weaponizing therapy around like when you're setting boundaries, like boundaries are supposed to be respect for yourself, not controlling others. Like I think we can go on forever around how the white standards have kind of...
So our own emotional regulation should be what works for us. And as long as it doesn't shame someone else, but we don't have to let other systems define what that regulation looks like.
Could be easy for the other person, but it's not about controlling the other person. I think, for example, like when your parents were out here, so often you and my aunt would try to set boundaries around what they needed to do, not boundaries for yourself. So it'd be like, my boundary is you can't call me after this time. And that's not a fair boundary because it's controlling them. Your boundary would be, I'm not picking up the phone after 7.
Yeah.
Like that's, and so I think things around that manner, it's truly learning, I think, healthy ways. And again, we could unpack that so much more.
Yeah.
Healthy ways to regulate our emotions, healthy ways to set boundaries, healthy ways. But yeah, all of this is really rooted in weaponized whiteness.
Yeah.
If we don't get our way,
we don't get our way. Well, anyways, and I think the more we talk about these things, like even hearing the word white supremacy, I gotta hear it. It's a definition. It's okay. I'm working on looking at my own complicity in this situation.
Yeah. So I think reflection for next time is
what would that be?
I'm already
Mm-hmm.
walking away from the word homework.
Yeah.
No, I really think it's where are you being hard on yourself?
Yeah.
Like where are you not showing yourself validation or positive emotional regulation? Like where are you being dismissive in your life?
Or where can you...
If you're dismissing your emotions, you're going to be dismissing others' emotions and their lived experience.
Yeah.
And so it's really starting with you and validating your lived experience and validating internally, so you can also then start to learn and be open to validate others.
Yeah. Wow, that was good.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for joining us on White Women Wake Up. We hope today's conversation sparks something in you, whether it's reflection, a new question, or a deeper commitment to showing up with empathy and accountability. If you found this episode meaningful, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. You can also connect with us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, or at whitewomenwakeup.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts and keep the conversation going. Yeah. Until next time, stay curious, stay open, and keep waking up together. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Oh my God, we're both in stripes.
How did that happen?
You know what I'm really excited about?
What are you really excited about?
Jonelle still has jelly beans.
Oh my gosh.
I love them. We do look funny.
I know, we should have coordinated that one.
I know.
Well.
Oh well.
Jailbirds.
Jailbird.